Hello, I am Rupkaji Gurung. This is my informal assessment strategy video. It is created for my provincial instructor diploma program PIDB 3230. I'm going to be talking about classroom assessment technique or informal assessment strategies called Muddiest point. This is the presentation outline. In this presentation, I'm going to be describe what is Muddiest point, how would this strategy work best, its limitation, advantages, best practices, and finally the feedback to the learners. So what is the muddiest point? Let's start talking about what is the muddiest point. The muddiest point is a teaching assessment technique developed in 1989 by Dr. Frederick Hostler, a Harvard University professor of statistics. A muddiest point is anything that unclear or confusion to the students. It usually asked in the end of the lectures or discussion or end of the class. This is an informal assessment that allowed to instructor to ask what is the most confusion, most unclear or most confusion or most difficult part of the lesson or chapter. The students are asked to write down what they have trouble understanding during the class, like what was the muddiest point in my lecture today. In other words, what was the least clear to you? The second one, in what context would this strategy work best? Let's talk about how this strategies work best. This classroom assessment technique is well to suited our large lower classes division. This should be the post at the end of the lecture, discussion or presentation. This muddiest point classroom assessment technique can be used quite frequently in those classes where a large amount of new information is presented, such as statistics, mathematics, natural science, and health science. Finally, the muddiest point is the best used mainly in the courses where the emphasis is on integrating, synthesizing, and evaluating information. What are the limitations of these strategies? Limitations of this muddiest point techniques are it can be undermine the motivation of both the students and teachers. It can be disconcerting despite class preparation done by the teachers and the best effort in teaching. It may be difficult for some students to explain or maybe even identify what it is that they don't understand. You may lose momentum of the course if too much time is spent on the muddiest point and do not move forward in the teaching. It requires a student to pay more attention how well they understand an relevant session or assignment. It requires self-assessment on the part of students. The instructor must be ensured that they don't become angry or disappointed when students identify something as a muddy point. What are the advantages of these strategies? The muddiest point technique has advantages for both students and instructor. For the students, advantages of this strategies for the students allow the students to reflect what was learned. It encourages retention of information. It also improves students' classroom skills such as attention skill, writing skill, and listening skill. It promotes an active participation with class content. For those students who are hesitant to ask the questions in class, this technique is a safe alternative. For students who are lost, it can be lifeline. For the instructor, the advantages of the strategies for the instructor is easy to administer and requires very little preparation. It gives instructor a snapshot diagnosis what students are finding of difficulties or difficult. It is more effective than asking for questions during the class time. So what are the some best practices for these strategies? Here are some best practices for these strategies. Don't overuse the Muddiest point. Focusing on the Muddiest point too often can be discourage both the instructor and students. Plan to use 5 to 10 minutes of the class for the initial implementation and 5 to 10 minutes of subsequent to discuss result. Finally, be sure to let your students know how much time they have and respond to the students feedback during the next class meeting. You may need to explain a student how to write the Muddiest point response. That is really helpful. Make sure you respond given to the students and encourage student to stay until time is over. Let's talk about how we can provide the feedback to learner or learners. There are so many options for provide the feedback to the students. The instructor can respond to the Muddiest point at the beginning of the next class. Provide the handout listing questions and answer. Post the question and answer on the course model or course web page. Provide the link to online resources. Send an email to the class. Use social media like Twitter or Facebook. These are the references used my video presentation. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening. Thank you very much.